rights to inspect in Iran.
Or somebody, or somebody that we respect,
And then
including ourselves.
And a question for both the President and the Attorney General. Under birthright citizenship, if this is implemented, who would be tasked with actually vetting citizenship? And how, like, would this be a situation where you have nurses and doctors checking for citizenship of parents? Or
This is all pending litigation. It's going to be decided in October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
if you have an undocumented baby, would that baby then be an enforcement priority?
The violent criminals in our country are the priority now. Let me put it in perspective. Today marks the 2,711th arrest in our country of TDA members, just TDA. Everyone in this room agrees they are one of the most violent criminal organizations in the world. And the Biden administration let them walk into our country for the last 4 years. 2,711 of them today have been arrested in our country. That is the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers, of FBI. That's the priority. That will be discussed in October when the Supreme Court hopefully rules in our favor, and we're very confident of that. But you should all feel safer now that President Trump can deport all of these gangs, and not one district court judge can think they're an emperor over this administration and his executive powers and why the people of the United States elected him.
I just might add one thing, and they used birthright citizenship, some of the worst people, some of the cartels, to get people into our country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This has to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to win. People didn't, I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years. But they've used it, the cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in. And what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
That's the priority.
On the tax bill, if I could for a moment, senators are racing to rewrite parts of it right now after the Senate parliamentarian ruled that sections of it were outside of the process that they're using to get this through. Do you think that senators should respect the decisions of the parliamentarian? And what have you personally done in the last 48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill to a yes?
Well, look, it's a great bill. It's a massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record, the highest in the history. The Democrats won't approve it only because politically it's so good for the Republicans. The Democrats aren't approving it. But think of what they're not approving. They're not approving border security. We've done a great job at the border, but we have to add some wall. We have to do various things. We have no money for that. We have no money for the border. We have no money for so many things. But if the Democrats, it'll be interesting to see if we get any Democrat votes. We should. If I were a Democrat, I would absolutely, maybe Fetterman, because he seems to be the most sensible one lately. If I were a Democrat, I would vote for this bill all day long because it's tax cuts and so many other things that are common sense. They're basic things. I think they're doing fine. The parliamentarian's been a little difficult, and I would say that I disagree with the parliamentarian on some things, and on other ways he's been fine. But we'll have to see. It's a big issue. I will tell you this: if that bill doesn't pass, the country will get a 68% tax increase. So think of this: you're a Democrat and you vote against it. That means you're voting in favor, because essentially you're voting in favor of the largest tax hike in the history of our country. And you can't do that. In addition, we're cutting costs by $1.7 trillion, and it won't affect anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse.
Mr. President, a leading global economist just did a 180 and says your tariff plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with it. What is your message
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked because I've been going through abuse for years on this. Because as you know, we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
But, Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to business school. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in. I had a call from somebody in the House and a high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do you mean by the books? The books, the money coming in. It's so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what seems, there's so much money coming in and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake because we have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. He calls me back 2 hours later, says, you're right. We took in 88 billion in tariffs. They have so much money coming in. But more important than the money coming in, we have companies coming in, factories coming in, auto plants being built. AI is being built here instead of being built all over Europe and Asia. We have all of it. We have over $15 trillion, just about, Scott. I think we're right at about that number. We went to Saudi Arabia. We went to Qatar, we went to UAE, very smart people, very smart leaders, great leaders, and we took in $5.1 trillion just there without the tariffs. I mean, they also liked a thing called November 5th, November 6th, and November 7th. That was a very good little period of time. It's called the presidential election. You know, you used to have one-day election, now you have it go over. But even if you just took that little period, because it was pretty obvious it was going to be a landslide. And they like that, but they love the tariffs. I had Texas Instruments come in the other day, big company, and he said, we're putting in $60 billion into new plants and new equipment, new everything. Sir, you're going to keep the tariffs, aren't you? Because if I ever took the tariffs off, and we are going to absolutely keep it. And they're worried that somebody like this communist from New York someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York. But the rest of the country is revolting against it. But if somebody got elected, they're afraid that if this was taken off, well, we're going to guarantee it's never going to be taken off. And again, we're taking in think of this, hundreds of billions of dollars. And they were all confused because they've never seen this before. You know, it's always the other way. We don't have enough money. So much money is coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen. But most importantly, we have factories being built, car plants being built, companies moving to our country like never before. If you look at 15 trillion, and that's only in a few months, you know, I haven't been here that long. Presidents, like the last one, was a disaster. He's the worst president in the history of our country, by the way. What he did on our border can never, ever be forgotten. To me, that's the worst of all the things, and he's done some terrible things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him, because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, you went from being a dead country, you are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country, and you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for the question. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about trade. Secretary Bessent has said that he hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay where they are now?
Well, there are some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of $1 trillion. A trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charged us tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year on trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them. And they don't like it, so they're upset. Because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even. Or they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit. Or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go ahead. But red dress.
On the 2020 election, is there any more information on the special prosecutor? So many Americans still have questions about the 2020 election. And speaking of rogue judges, would you consider appointing somebody at DOJ maybe to investigate the judges that allowed for the political persecution of you, your family, and your supporters during the Biden administration?
I love you. Who are you?
I'm Clara from Lindell TV.
Well, that's just a very nice question. And it's not a setup. I have no idea who you are, but I appreciate that question. All I can say is we're not here for that. I hope so. I hope they're doing a thing because that election was rigged and stolen, and we can't allow that to happen. A lot of people tell me, sir, you just won the greatest election in the history of our country. You won it in numbers that won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything. Sir, go on with your life. And many people that say that, good people, friends of mine, then you have people that say that same thing, go on with your life, but you have to find out what happened because you can't let that happen again. Look at what this lunatic did. Look at what he did. He opened our borders to people that were murderers, 11,888 to be exact, murderers, and we've captured many of those murderers. And we're bringing them back, or some of them are so dangerous that we don't even want to bring them back. We're afraid they're going to try and come back in. But he allowed people to come into this country, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, that's a mental institution on steroids, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, people, jails being emptied out into our country. Venezuela emptied out almost its entire prison population into our country. But I don't want to blame them. Many countries have done that. The Congo, we have a great press conference coming up later, and it's the Congo and Rwanda. They were fighting for years. And it was machetes, it was vicious, it was as vicious, people's heads being chopped off. And I have a man who's very good in that part of the world, very smart, and put them together. And we're signing a peace treaty today. First time in many years they're going to have peace. And it's a big deal. We talk about Russia, and we're working that one. President Putin called up and he said, I'd love to help you with Iran. I said, do me a favor. I'll handle Iran. Help me with Russia. We got to get that one settled. And I think something's going to happen there. But we did some great work. India and Pakistan. That was going to be maybe nuclear. We did that. We did a lot of work. I don't know if there's ever been a president that's done much more. Serbia, Kosovo was going to go at it. Going to be a big war. I said, you go at it. There's no trade with the United States. They said, well, maybe we won't go at it. That's what happened with India and Pakistan. I was negotiating with both of them, and I said to Scott, I said to Howard, cancel all deals with India and Pakistan. They're not trading with us because they're in a war. They called back, what do we do? I said, look, you want to have trade with the United States, it's great. But you want to go and start using nuclear weapons on each other? We're not going to allow that. And they both agreed. Both have great leaders. They both agreed not to do it. So we did a lot, but I appreciate that question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
Orange.
President. Thank you, Mr. President.
I was just speaking with Senator Ron Johnson on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and he says he really wants to get to yes for you and get this accomplished.
He does. He's a good man.
But he also said that he needs more time, and he is not certain that the July 4th deadline is
Well, then he's not such a good man.
because there's too much work to do.
He's a good man. Ron
How
Johnson's
important-
doing a good job. He's very committed. Every Republican senator is committed. And, you know, you could have a couple of grandstanders, in all fairness. You could have somebody else. And it's very dangerous because our country would go from being the most successful country in the world to who knows what happens with a 68%, think of it, 68% tax increase. That was given by the Democrats because they like high taxes. I don't know what happened. You know, all my life, I'd grow up and I'd watch politicians talking. I'd say, oh, that's fun. And they were always saying, we will cut your taxes. We will cut your taxes. I never heard it. They say, we will raise your taxes. And they elect people like this guy in New York that maybe has a chance. I find it hard to believe, but he maybe has a chance. They want to raise your taxes. So they want to see a 68% tax increase. That's more money than anybody could afford. You'd go into a depression if that ever happened. So I think there's a lot of pressure to get that approved.
How important is the July 4th deadline to you? If
It's important. It's not the
deadline
end
comes
all.
in August?
It can go longer, but we'd like to get it done by that time, if possible. And look, we have a lot of very committed people, and they feel very strongly about a subjects that you're not even thinking about that are important to Republicans. The problem we have is that it's a great bill. It's a popular bill, but we'll get no Democrats only because they don't want to vote for Trump. If that bill was their bill, oh, they would be so happy. It's so great for our military. It's great for everything. And they would normally vote, but because their hatred of Trump, they have Trump derangement syndrome at levels never seen before. And instead of voting for a tax cut, they're voting for a tax increase of 68%. They're voting to destroy Social Security, destroy Medicare, and destroy Medicaid. And we're voting to make them perfect and to make them better, make them stronger and better. They're going to destroy Medicaid, and they're going to destroy Medicare, and Social Security will follow. If you vote for the Democrats, you're dead on those three things.
Thank you, Mr. President. On a related subject, many Democrats have said that they are not going to support crypto bills in Congress only because of you and your family's personal crypto ventures. And these votes are in some cases needed to pass. Are you open to the idea of pulling away from your personal crypto ventures just for the next few years if that helps get these crypto bills passed in the next few months?
Well, it's a very funny thing, crypto. So I became a fan of crypto, and to me it's an industry. I view it as an industry, and I'm president. And if we didn't have it, China would, or somebody else would, but most likely China would love to. And we've dominated that industry. It's a big industry, by the way. In fact, when the stock market went down recently, crypto and Bitcoin and all of that went down much less than anybody else as a group. And we've created a very powerful industry, and that's much more important than anything that we invest in. We invest in it, but really that was an industry that wasn't doing particularly well. I got involved with it a couple of years ago, and before the second term. I got involved before I decided to run. I only decided to run because I saw what was happening, and Biden was incompetent, and the administration was crooked and incompetent. And I was in Bitcoin then, not knowing if I was going to do it a third time. So it's become amazing. I mean, it's the jobs that it produces, and I notice more and more you pay in Bitcoin. I mean, people are saying it takes a lot of pressure off the dollar, and it's a great thing for our country. So I don't care about investing. You know, I have kids, and they invest in different things. They do believe in it. But I'm president, and what I did do there is build an industry that's very important. And you know, if we didn't have it, China would. Okay.
Sir, Mr. President.
Go ahead. With the glasses, gentlemen. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, are you going to cut funds in the sanctuary states, like, for instance, California, that keep supporting illegal immigration, and then these people work under
Yeah, we're giving them a hard time.
And also, foreign policy question.
I mean, they don't have a governor in California. They have a man that wants to give away everything to people that nobody's seen before. If we didn't go into Los Angeles with the military, which did a fantastic job, but if we didn't go into Los Angeles bringing in the National Guard, I would have brought the military if it was necessary, because you have to. We have the right to. That was another thing upheld by the Supreme Court. But if we didn't go in with the National Guard and be strong and tough, you wouldn't maybe have Los Angeles. It would be like the rest of California, the rest of Los Angeles. They lost 25,000 houses in a fire. They should have lost none. You know, I sent the water down. I had to break into their water supply because they just refused to do it. They're crazy. There's something wrong with them. They have plenty of water. They don't have droughts or anything. They have we let it come down from the Pacific Northwest. They routed all the water out into the Pacific Ocean for environmental reasons, okay? And now you have 25,000 houses, none of which would have burned down if you had the water. They didn't have water. They didn't have water for the fire pumps. They didn't have water in the sprinkler systems that people put in. So the answer is we're going to work with governors. We're going to work with radical left Democrats and Democrats, and we're going to make it good for everybody. We'll have to stop the crime in those. In the case of the cities, I think I can say just about all cities with heavy crime are run by Democrats. Go ahead. Yeah, with the glasses.
I'm with you.
Go ahead, yes. Yeah, no, the man behind you, yeah, please.
President Trump, Anthony Mashhad from Amphibia, Lebanon. I want to ask you regarding the threats posed by Iran's allies and proxies operating in the U.S. They were threatening your life. So what do you say about that? And regarding the Lebanon, because Hezbollah is as well part of Iran's allies, is there any time frame in Lebanon regarding disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Yeah, Lebanon is a great place with brilliant people. You know, it was known for the professors and doctors and had an incredible history, and hopefully we can bring it back again. I just appointed a friend of mine who's Lebanese, and I didn't know he was Lebanese. I've known him for 20 years, very, very successful man, and I just appointed him. And I said, why would you want that? He said, because I was born there, I was raised there, I love it. I love it so much. I said, you know, it's very dangerous going to Lebanon as ambassador. And he said, that's what they say, but I don't care about danger. I mean, this is a guy that is just a very big business guy. He wants to give up his whole life to go to Lebanon because he believes in it so much. We're with Lebanon all the way. We'll try and straighten it out.
Action.
Threaten my life? Yeah, they have threatened. I get that throbbing feeling every once in a while. Get that throbbing feeling, but you know what? That's okay. It is a dangerous business. What I do is a dangerous business. You know, I tell the story of the car companies and different people in different professions you have. Race car drivers, as an example. 1/10 of 1% die. Bull riders, 1/10 of 1%. That's not a lot, but it's people die. When you're president, it's about 5%. If somebody would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have run. Okay? This is a very dangerous profession. Yeah, by the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead.
On Iran.
You tell me when it gets boring. Okay?
If Iran...
Are you from Iran?
No, I'm not from Iran. I'm from the UK. But if the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Sure, without question, absolutely.
Have you had any conversations?
Turned out to be unbelievable. But, you know, our incredible flyers and I call them the shots. These guys are unbelievable. From 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much smaller than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, blowing up. Incredible, incredible thing. I don't know if you heard the general. He was very impressive. Raisin Cain. You know, he's the one that beat ISIS for me. And he did it in a matter of weeks. And I was told it was going to take 4 or 5 years. And when I got this job, I always said, if I get this job, I'm going to put that guy as the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Dan Cain, and he, when I heard his name was Raisin, his nickname is Raisin Cain. I said, you got to be kidding. So I liked him right from the beginning. But he knocked out ISIS in a time that nobody ever thought possible. And when this attack was completed and so successful, I said, now I know how you knocked out ISIS so quickly. But we have the best people, we have the best equipment in the world. You know, I rebuilt the military during my my 4 years during my other term. We have the best equipment in the world. The problem is we gave away, a lot of it, but small, relatively speaking. We gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan. Shouldn't have happened. That just shows how incompetent they were. They gave all that equipment away, billions and billions of dollars worth. Shouldn't have happened, but that was small compared to what we have. Now we have a great military with great people. Okay.
Mr. President, congratulations. A couple of very different questions. One is Rwanda in 1994. As you grew up in New York, we all knew how horrific those attacks were. Congratulations on that treaty. There are talks that perhaps...
That's going to take place today at 3 o'clock in the Oval Office. We're going to have a signing with Rwanda and the Congo. So I'm a little out of my league in that one because I didn't know too much about it. I knew one thing. They were going at it for many years, and with machetes, it is one of the worst wars that anyone's ever seen. And I just happened to have somebody that was able to get it settled. I mean, just a brilliant person who is very comfortable in that part of the world. It's a very dangerous part of the world. They said, are you uncomfortable there? People are being killed, school children are being raided and killed, and I don't even want to say how, but as viciously as I've ever heard. Are you uncomfortable? No, that's the part of the world that I know. Very comfortable. Was able to get them together and sell it, and not only that, we're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here. They never thought they'd be coming to. Look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me, they never thought they'd ever be coming to the White House, and they're so honored. And so we're going to give them a great big reception, but that's after many years of fighting. It's a great thing. That's at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Sir, are you concerned at all about secret nuclear sites in Iran? You talked about maybe just
secret nuclear site?
Yes, that there might be some.
Not really. Can I tell you? They're exhausted. And Israel's exhausted too. And I dealt with both of them. And they both wanted it settled, both of them. And we did a great job, but they're exhausted. The last thing they're thinking about right now is nuclear. You know what they're thinking of? They're thinking about tomorrow, trying to live. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. The place was bombed to hell. And no, I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm putting out a little statement. I'm going to respond to the Ayatollah's statement yesterday that we won the war. Oh, God, we won the war. And I said, look, you're a man of great faith, a man who's highly respected in this country. You have to tell the truth. You got beat to hell. And Israel was beat up too. They were both beat up. And it was a great time to end it. It was quick. They got the hate out. There was a lot of hate. A lot of hate. It would be great if they didn't have that hate. But the last thing they're thinking about is nuclear weapons right now. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Iris Tao with NTD Research Media with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much for doing this. It's very refreshing for all of us here.
It's a good group.
In this room.
It's refreshing.
Very refreshing. Yes, we have to have
Probably.
this, and
I understand what you mean.
So thank you so much for coming out here.
Other than Caroline's done a great job.
Yes.
You're referring to the past administration, not to Caroline, right?
Yes. Back to the ruling today, if you don't mind. So you have always talked about winning for the American people.
Right.
How do you think today's ruling will enable you to further deliver for American families and workers across the country, not only when it comes to immigration, but also when it comes to trade, energy? What actions are most eager to move forward?
Well, I think
now?
taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous. This is such a big day. This is such a big day. It's like. It's sort of sad because we're doing the signing at 3 o'clock, and this may very well dominate the signing of a big war that was going on and really affecting the continent of, think of it, the entire continent of Africa was being affected. And we're settling that war today, and this will probably be a headline. But this is a very big moment, and it gives power back to people that should have it, including Congress, including the presidency. And it only takes bad power away from judges. It really doesn't take power. It takes bad power, sick power, and unfair power. And it's really going to be, it is a very monumental decision. Yeah, please.
Yes, thanks very much. On July 9th,
Is that July 9th date a set for tariffs to snap
No.
back? Or could there be a...
We can do whatever we want. We could extend it, we could make it shorter. I'd like to make it shorter. I'd like to just send letters out to everybody. Congratulations, you're paying 25%. He doesn't want, he's a much nicer person than I am. Go ahead, you finish it up?
Who are you considering for the Federal Reserve then? And are you speeding up that process? I see Secretary...
Oh, he's terrible, he's terrible. I mean, I have a list of things, we're like 38 on the list. We pay, Cameroon, different places are paying the same as us. Because, you have somebody sets a rate at 4% or 4.5%. It's hard to go out and say, we should be paying 1% when you have your so-called experts doing it. And the sad part is, as per the question that you asked about tariffs, we've had the tariffs, and we have less inflation than we had before. What we have is a hell of a lot more money, a hell of a lot more income, and we shouldn't be paying a rate like that. In other words, when we pay a rate, I'll tell you, each point is the equivalent of $300 billion. So if we had it down 3 points, because I think we should be at 1, you have Switzerland is at 0.25. In other words, 25% of 1%. And they're the number 1 right now. But we should be the number 1. And soon you're going to have, I think, you're going to have where the people will pay will pay, like we had a few years ago, where you put up money, you loan money, and you actually, instead of paying, you get paid. I love that. I don't know if it's any good, but I love it, where you put up money and you get paid. But we should be in a category, so we should be at the top of the list, not toward the bottom of the list. But we have a man who's not a smart man, and he probably has Trump derangement syndrome. And he's just not a smart person. What he's doing, though, he's hurting us for years to come. Because if we borrow money at 2 points higher than we should be paying, that's $600 billion. Wouldn't you say those numbers are about right, Scott? So it's 2 points would be about 600, actually more than that, but about $600 billion. All because the guy doesn't want to lower the rates. He is doing the service, a very disservice, and then he goes up and talks about, I'd like to see costs come down. He gets up and he does his little thing for 5 minutes, and he goes out and he goes back to the beach. He goes, I'd like to see costs come down. Well, he could lower the interest cost by $900 billion a year. All he has to do is lower rates. And everybody's saying, I was watching some of the business shows today, and they're saying, Trump's right. He should really be cutting. The country's doing well. We have no inflation. Now, despite him, we're doing great. But if we got
Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that
the rates down, we would be a rocket ship. So I think that'll be it. And I just want to thank everybody.
The violent criminals.
This is a really big day. We've had a big week. We've had a big week. We've had a lot of victories this week. NATO was a tremendous victory.
Arrest in our country.
The war was a tremendous. Look, we were talking about this for 30 years.
They're one of the most violent criminal organizations
Iran being nuclear
in the world.
And all I said is it will not be nuclear. And it's
into our country.
Not going to be nuclear.
For the last 4
and,
years.
I want to give credit to a lot
of
people, and most importantly to our great military. Boy, they put out that fire. Once that happened,
of this country, of homeland security,
and once those bombs got dropped, that war was over.
That's the priority.
That war was over, but I just want to compliment
when the Supreme Court
them incredible, the general and all of his generals. Pete Hegseth
safer now that
was
President
great.
Trump can deport
And now I want to compliment Pam. A lot of genius went into this. People, if you don't say it exactly right, if the Supreme Court doesn't get it because it's incorrectly spoken about, and that happens. A lot of cases are lost because they don't say the right words. But I want to correct. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. I may change it. My
country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This has to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think...
I want to correct. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. I may change my mind about...
We looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong.
I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have call and say, I was only kidding. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. This was a tremendous win. And we've had tremendous wins, but this was a tremendous win today.
All over, FBI, ICE,
So I just want to congratulate you and Todd and your whole staff. Very brilliant people, and we can't forget
They
John.
wanna have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants.
Sala,
into our-
who is with,
some cases,
there's a medical emergency within his family, so he's taking care of that, and we said absolutely. So I just want to thank everybody
Rewrite parts of it right now after the Senate parliamentarian.
very much. Thank you.
Outside
This
of
was
the process that they're using to get this through.
a big decision,
Senators should respect
an amazing decision, one that we're very happy about.
personally done
This morning,
48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill.
Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for
Massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%.
the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use
Republicans, the Democrats aren't approving it, but think of what they're not approving. They're not
of
approving
nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done.
no money for so many things. But if the Democrats, it'd be interesting to see if we get any.
And really, it's
If I were a
been
Democrat, I would
it's
have to
been
vote for Fetterman, 'cause he's
an amazing period of time. This last hour, there are people elated all over the country.
all day long because it's tax cuts and so many other things that are common sense. They're basic things.
Seen such
I think they're doing
such
fine.
happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is
Difficult, and I would say that I vegetarian on some things.
very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months, we've seen a handful of
If that bill doesn't pass, the country will get a 60.
radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policy
Because essentially you're voting in favor of the largest tax hike in the history of our country.
that they voted for in record
In
numbers.
addition, we're cutting
It
costs by
was a grave threat to
$1.7
democracy,
trillion.
frankly,
It
and
won't affect anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse.
instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the
Plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with it. What is your message?
I love this. I love this question. This is the
entire
best question I've
nation.
ever been asked, 'cause I've
In
been
practice,
on for
this meant that
years,
if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected
no inflation whatsoever,
But, Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a
evil intention. I believe
president of the United States,
Time will
he or
tell.
she could block
But I don't believe that they're going to go back into nuclear.
that policy from going into effect, or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system.
By the way, to do that is very dangerous. It's very, very heavy material.
This was a colossal
Those
abuse
guys
of
are most
power
likely
which
to
never
cause
occurred in
Masons because they
American
poured
history prior to
concrete
recent
at the
decades,
top, at the
and we've been hit
back.
with more
That's going
nationwide
into the
injunctions
nuclear
than were issued
They
in the
wanted to reinforce it, and they had some masons there pouring concrete. By the way, that concrete was obliterated. It hit exactly at the concrete. It was, I don't think it had a chance to dry, but everything's down there. It's under
entire
millions of
20th
tons of
century
rock.
together.
Please, yes.
Your administration has said that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere.
Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the
We've had a
Supreme
great relationship with El Salvador. They have a
Court
fantastic
for
leader.
stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex
And I don't know exactly
problem,
why.
and they've made it very simple.
And we bring
I want to
people
thank
there.
Justice
When
Barrett,
they go there, they don't-
who wrote the
Yeah.
opinion brilliantly, as well as
They
Chief
have to go
Justice
there. They
Roberts,
become very nice people.
and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people.
It's a system done by a very, very good leader. We'll talk about El Salvador. A lot of respect. Yeah, please.
Thank you. A question for you, and then a question for the Attorney General. As you go
Thanks for this decision.
Are you demanding not only that there would be no uranium production in Iran, but also that Iran would turn over all existing stockpiles?
Thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been
Say that I've been saying
wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, and some of the cases we're talking about would be
nuclear weapon, and That's what happened. It's been obliterated. It would be years
ending
before they could ever get
birthright
going.
citizenship,
I really
which
think it's
now
probably
comes to
the
the
last
fore.
thing they have to
That was
recover
meant for the
from
babies of
a hell
slaves.
of a
It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country.
Have full rights to inspect in Iran.
Or
anywhere,
somebody,
anytime.
yeah, or somebody that we respect,
And then just
including ourselves.
And a question for both the President and the Attorney General. Under birthright citizenship, if this is implemented,
On a vacation.
who would be tasked
This was, in fact,
vetting citizenship? And how, like, would this be a situation where you have...
it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious.
It's going to
But
be decided in October by the
this
Supreme
lets
Court.
us go there and finally win that case because hundreds of thousands of people are
That baby then be an enforcement...
pouring into our country under birthright
Violent
citizenship, and it wasn't meant for
in
that
our country are the priority
reason.
now. Let me
It
put
was
it in
meant for the
perspective.
babies of slaves.
Today marked the 2,711th
So thanks to this decision, we
arrest
can now
in our country
properly
of
file
TDA
to proceed
members. Just TDA.
with
Everyone
these
in this
numerous
room agrees
policies
they are one of
and
the most
those that have been
violent
wrongly
criminal
enjoined on a
organizations
nationwide
in the world.
basis,
And the
including
Biden
birthright
administration let them
citizenship,
walk into our
ending
country,
sanctuary
walk
city
into our
funding,
country for the
suspending
last 4 years.
refugee resettlement,
2,711
freezing
of them
unnecessary
today have
funding,
been
stopping
arrested
federal
in our country.
taxpayers from
That is
paying
the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland
for
Security,
transgender
of all of our
surgeries
lawyers, of
and
FBI.
numerous other priorities
That's the
of the
priority.
American
that
people.
will be discussed in October when the Supreme Court hopefully rules in our favor, and we're very confident of that.
We have
You
so
should
many
all
of them.
feel
I have a
safer
whole
now
list. I'm not
that
going to
President
bore you, and I'm
Trump
going to
can
have
deport all of
Pam
these-
get up
all of
and
these
say a
gangs,
few
and
words,
not
but
one
there's really, she
district
can talk as
court
long as she
judge
wants
can
because
think they're an emperor over this administration and his executive powers and why the people of the
very
United
important
States elected
decision.
them.
This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this
Into our country, just so you know.
ruling.
Again,
It's
I
a
said, if you
giant.
look at the
It's
end
a
of the
giant.
Civil War, the
And they should be very proud, and our country should be very
The
proud
end day was at 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact
of
day,
the
that's
Supreme
what
Court
killed
today.
Israel.
And with that, I'd
And
like
the
you
case had
to
this had to do with
listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible Attorney General. We're very proud of her. And
when people didn't, I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright
as you know,
citizenship
Todd
wrong.
Blanche is with us, and we
They've
have
used it. The cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in, and what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing.
so many others that worked on this case and other cases. And I think they're doing a great job. Pam,
Incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe. and
Please
they
say a
don't
few
want
words.
some of this is another way that they restrict illegal immigration into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your tax bill.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally
Ruled that sections of it
getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's
parliamentarian. And what have you personally done in the last 48 hours?
policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly
If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record.
holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or
Politically, it's so good for the Republicans. The Democrats aren't approving it. But think about it, they're not
universal
approving it.
injunctions.
Approving
These
border
lawless
security,
injunctions
doing a great job at the border.
gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today,
For so many things. But if the Democrats, and it'll be interesting to see if we get any Democrat votes. We should. If I were a Democrat, I would absolutely, maybe Fetterman, because he seems to be the most sensible one lately. If I were a Democrat, I would vote for this bill all day long because it's
they
it's
turned district
so many
courts
other
into the
things. Common sense. They're basic things. I think they're doing fine.
imperial judiciary. Active liberal justices, judges have used these injunctions
on some things, and on other ways she's been
to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal
tax increase. So think of this: you're a Democrat and you vote against it.
judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held
And you can't do that. In addition, we're cutting costs by
35 of the nationwide injunctions.
And it won't
Think about
affect
that.
anybody.
94
Just
districts.
Fraud, waste, and abuse.
And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer.
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked because I've been
No
going through
longer.
abuse for years.
These injunctions have blocked our
Because, as you
policies
know,
from
we're
tariffs
taking
to
in
military readiness
hundreds
to
of
immigration to
billions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. No longer. And on immigration, on a side note, today marks
Together. And nothing was moved from the site, by the way. To do that is very dangerous.
2,711 arrests
Those cars are
on
most likely the cars
these
of Masons because they were pouring concrete.
terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations, and thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank
Some Masons there pouring
you
concrete.
to
By the way,
Homeland
that concrete
Security.
was
Thank you to
obliterated.
everyone working
It hit
hand in
exactly
hand
with the concrete. It was, I don't think it had a chance to dry.
with the FBI on all of these
everything's down there
transnational
under
gangs.
millions of
TDA has
tons
been
of
a
rock.
huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer.
Temporary protected status to that country? Was it part of the
These injunctions have allowed district court judges to be emperors.
They built a massive prison system.
Vetoed all
And
of
I don't
President
know
Trump's
exactly why,
power,
but it's
and they
a system.
cannot do
And
that.
we bring people
This has been a
there. When they go there, they don't get out.
bipartisan
And frankly,
problem
when they hear they
that
have
has
to go there, they
lasted
become very
5
nice people.
presidential
They become very nice people. It's a tough
terms,
system, but it's a
5
brilliant
different
system, and,
presidents.
it's a system
And it has
done by a very
ended today.
So we'll talk
We will
about that.
continue to
A lot of
fight for
respect.
President Trump's policies. I want to thank the Office of White House Counsel, Dave Warrington. You and your staff have been incredible.
Talks with Iran.
Our Solicitor General's office, John Sowers, Sarah Harris, and Todd Blanche and Emil
So that Iran would turn over all existing
Bovey.
stock.
Todd's going to say a few words because we've had another major
Something like that. Yeah, we'll do something
ruling
like that.
today on transgender books and some other great wins that we've had. But no
Even as a civilian, you cannot let them have
longer will they have this power in our country.
It's been
It is the
obliterated. It would
president's
be years before
authority
they
under
get
his
it going.
executive
And I really think it's probably the last thing they have to recover
branch
from
to do
a hell
everything
of a
to
tough
fight for the
war.
American people, and he will continue to do that. That's why he was overwhelmingly elected.
Or somebody, yeah, or somebody that we respect.
Thank you.
Including ourselves.
And a question for
Thank you. Today's
under birthright citizenship.
a great day for the rule of law. It's a great day for the Justice Department, and it's one that's been a long time coming.
Nurses and doctors checking for
And one that every American should have been waiting for with bated breath. And so
Decided in October.
I echo what the President said and Attorney General Bondi, that the Supreme Court did a great thing today, not only
then be an enforcement priority.
for this administration, but for every American in this country.
Put it in perspective. Today,
If not for the injunctions case, we would be here talking about another great
arrest in our
decision that came down today, the trans books case, which restores parents' rights to
They're
decide
one of the most violent criminal organizations in the
their
world.
child's education.
And the Biden
Seems like
administration let
a
them
basic
walk into our
idea, but
country,
it took the
walk
Supreme
into our
Court
country for
to
the last 4 years. 2,711 of them
set the record
today
straight, and we thank
have
them
been
for that.
arrested in
And
our
now
country.
that
That is
ruling
the
allows
priority
parents to
Donald
opt
Trump.
out
That is
of
the priority
dangerous
of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers,
trans
of
ideology
FBI.
and make
That's
the decisions for
priority.
their
That will be
children
discussed
that they
in
believe is
October
correct. And
when
so
the
we thank
Supreme Court hopefully rules in our
the
favor.
Supreme
and
Court
we're
for
very
that. There's
confident
been
of that.
multiple
But you should
decisions
all
over the
feel
past
safer now
several
that
weeks
President Trump
that
can
just
deport
show why
all of these
this injunction,
gangs, and not one
why this nationwide
district
injunction
court
ban
judge
had to
can think
happen.
they're an emperor over this
For example,
administration.
what I mean by that
and
is
his executive powers and why the
local
people of the
district
United
court
States
judges
elected him.
issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it, but that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency.
Thereafter, this has to do with the babies of slaves.
emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work
we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking
is really paying off today, but over the past few weeks. We had a stay of an order that prevented DHS from moving aliens to a third country.
And what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over FBI.
We had a stay of an order that stopped the Department of Defense from implementing military readiness.
The country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get.
That President Trump signed. We had another stay of an order forcing reinstatement of fired executive branch employees.
On your tax bill, if I could for a moment, senators
entirely within the president in Article 2, his right to do. We had a stay of, as you all know, of numerous
outside of the process that they're using to get this through.
DOJ cases. And again, every one of those stays requires a tremendous
What have you personally done in the last 48 hours?
amount of work and effort by the lawyers and parties involved, and they should be doing other work. They should be doing the work that the president and this administration demands.
Up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record, the highest in the history. The Democrats won't approve it only because politically it's
and has a right to demand, and not fighting these local judges who don't make decisions based on the law.
Security. We've done a great job at the border, but we have to add some more.
They make decisions because they just simply don't agree with the administration's decision about a policy, and that's it.
No money for so many things, but if the Democrats
And that's wrong. Thank you.
Any questions? Because he seems to be the.
Yes, the Pam, please.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Attorney General. So, as you know, the Supreme
Things. I think they're doing fine.
Court did not rule on the underlying constitutionality of the president's birthright citizenship order. So,
And on some things, and on others, it's been fine.
what is the plan now? Are you going to try to implement the EO just in states where there isn't a legal challenge?
We will get a 68.
Yes, so birthright citizenship will be decided in October
And you vote against it.
in the next session by the Supreme Court, unless it comes down in the next few minutes. I guess it could
Tax hike in the history of our country. And
come down. They're still, I think they're still deliberating right now on some cases. As you heard, we just got transgender books, which is a huge win.
Fraud, waste, and abuse.
But most likely, that will be decided in October in the next session. However, it indirectly impacts us because, as you correctly pointed out, if there's a birthright citizenship
I love this.
case in Oregon, it will only affect the plaintiff in Oregon,
Because I've been going through
not the entire country. So yes, it's indirectly, but that's pending litigation, and we're waiting
billions of dollars.
on that in the next term.
And how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will come back and determine that the executive order is unconstitutional?
We're very confident in the
I believe that
Supreme Court, but again, it's pending litigation, and that will directly be determined
back into nuclear.
and in October, but it indirectly impacts every case in this country, and we're thrilled with their decision today. Peter.
Madam Attorney General, thank you for being.
To do that is very dangerous. It's very, very heavy material. Those cars were most likely the.
Here to take our questions. A couple questions to the both of you. The EO had a 30-day grace period before it goes into
the nuclear site. They wanted to reinforce.
Effect. Is there any thought about trying to make it effective immediately within that period of time?
We're going to follow the law. We're going to make those decisions,
It was. I don't think it had a chance to dry.
and we're going to do what's right in the bounds of the law.
And then the DOJ didn't ask the justices to rule on the merits of the birthright citizenship ban.
Please. Yes.
Your administration has said that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere.
Just for explanation purposes, why?
Sure, because that's going to come down in October in the separate. This was huge because it's indirectly impacted today. As I said, it's now
Prison system, and I don't know exactly why, but it's a hell of a system, and we bring people there, and when they go there, they don't get out.
Case by
And frankly,
case.
when they hear
Let
that,
me reiterate,
they
of
become very
the
nice people. They become very nice people. It's a tough system, but it's a brilliant system, and it's a system.
35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as president of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy.
But also that Iran would turn over all existing stockpiles of uranium?
Well, you know, we're a
These
little
these
early for
5
that.
districts. So yes, it indirectly impacts us. It will be a separate decision in October. Next question.
25 years, even as a
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for you, sir. Do you believe this ends the power of
It's been obliterated. It would be
the
years
lower
before
court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that, but this is
rights to inspect.
really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster.
For both the President and the Attorney General. Under
Where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state, or a liberal judge, or a
like, would this be a situation where
liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years, because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions.
In October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
If you have an undocumented baby, would that baby then be?
But it would take years to do it, and we have to act quickly when it comes
In our country are the priority now. Let me put it in perspective.
to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we
in our country of TDA.
have what they've allowed to come into our country.
Everyone
Should
in this
never
room
be
agrees they are one
forgotten.
of the
It should
most
never be
violent criminal
forgotten what they've done to our country,
in the world.
and we have to be able
And
to
the
act
Biden
very
administration
quickly,
let
and we're going to do
walk
that.
in
Thank
our-
you.
Just as Amy Coney Barrett, sir, I know that you praised her and her opinion here in this case. She has taken some heat, though, from some of your
arrested in our country. That is the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers, of FBI. That's the priority. That will be discussed in October when the
Reporters
Supreme
who
Court
have labeled her weak, squishy, or rattled.
Very confident of that. But you should all feel safer now that President Trump can deport all of these gangs.
Law
and not one
professor.
district
What is your
court
take on that?
judge
I don't know about that. I just have great respect for
over
her.
this
I always have.
administration and his
And